What are some of the worst things that you have heard educators say to other educators? Sometimes survival boils down to the art of words. People use words to mask how they feel and use words to push others to experience how they are feeling. Some uses words to empower others, and some uses it to dehumanize, disempower and belittle others. Some are just downright mean and insensitive. Others are self-aware, concerned and emotionally intelligent. This variation of how words are used breed differences everywhere. How are words used in your establishment? What type of culture does it reflect? Let's explore some of the harsh things that colleagues say to others and how to function without them impacting your personal development and your professional capabilities. Most work colleagues can be very supportive of each other, even in schools where this type of camaraderie does not seem to permeate the natural culture of the school environment. Oftentimes, colleagues may be demonstrating the ability to empathize with each other because they have similar difficulties and they need to work together to resolve them. They can be very forthcoming with suggestions and strategies for dealing with certain students, better managing certain aspects of work life, and support with sharing duties and responsibilities. Nevertheless, colleagues sometimes say things that really makes you question their sense of emotional security, their self-awareness, their morality and human connectivity. When you find colleagues that invest in your personal and professional development, appreciate and celebrate them. Have you ever talked about the challenges you are having with a student to have a colleague respond, "He or she is a saint in my lessons"? That same child that you are struggling to find a strategy for and whom you are well aware is being a nuisance for several other colleagues around the school. Yet, when you express your concern, this colleague responds with, "He or she is a saint in my lesson," or something along that line. That subtleness in their response is suggesting that they are so good at behavior management and that they have expertise in dealing with that child's disruptiveness whilst you don't. Additionally, they are suggesting that they forge such good relationships with their students and you don't. Try and sit in on a lesson with that student in that particular teacher's classroom and see how the behavior is and how that teacher addresses the behavior in order to validate their comment. And then decide on whether the way they respond to that student is a strategy or approach that you would want to emulate in your classroom. Have you ever been in the position where you are finding it difficult to get your whole class to understand a particular concept and is seeking alternative approaches from colleagues only to hear that's an easy topic to teach? Be conscious that a colleague's insinuation that it's an easy topic to teach does not convey the success of students or their ease in which they learnt the concept. Use the colleague's statement to your advantage. Find out from that colleague some of the approaches that they have used in teaching their class that same concept. Invite them to share resources with you and even co-plan or co-teach a lesson with you. This way, they can demonstrate to you the ease of teaching the topic and your students can benefit from their expertise. That gives you a chance to make an informed decision about their strategies and may provide the ease with which to teach the topic in the future. Is there ever a time when you are conveying how long it has taken you to teach a unit of learning and a colleague casually replies, "I'm finished teaching that unit already"? They say it in such a way as to imply that they're super efficient and you aren't. There are those colleagues who seem to finish the sequence of learning so quickly that you want to question how they can teach it so quickly and you are only halfway through. Or contemplate the correlation of their teaching with their class's learning. You may even ask, is it that you have spent too much time on the learning intentions? Have you not structured your planning well? Or are you falling behind and failing the students? Before you spend too much time asking these questions and possibly sending yourself on a downward spiral, ask to see a couple copies of the teacher's students' books. That way, you can make an informed decision about how your approach to the sequence of learning compares. Most teachers either despise marking or struggles to keep on top of the workload marking creates. Have you ever had a colleague who feels it's a race to finish marking and entering the data first on summative assessment, although lagging behind in the formative marking and feedback? There are those teachers who are early out of the block when there are assessments to be marked and data to be entered. It may concern you that you do not mark as quickly and that you are lagging behind because you take a couple evenings to mark yours. Be reminded that another teacher's schedule, priority, and time availability is not yours. Work towards the deadline given and not to the pace of another teacher. It's not a competition who can mark and enter their scores first. It's equally not something that determines your efficiency and consistency with regards to your timely marking and developmental feedback that you provide your students with on an ongoing basis. Have you ever said something to a colleague and they respond with "really? Are you sure?" and you are conscious that their response is usually not at a shock for what you have said, but rather a questioning of you and your judgment? This happens when you are explaining situations to colleagues and they want to imply that the problem is in your mind or how you perceive the situation, or that you have misread or misunderstood what was taking place, even when you use explicit data and evidence to draw your conclusion. Another way this plays out is to make their narrative one that goes against what everyone else sees and knows to be truth. They acclaim that an undertaking went brilliantly, smoothly, and successfully when everyone else knows the disaster it had been. Another is when they compare yours and someone else's predicament as though they are relatable, when they clearly are not and should not be compared. This is because instead of addressing the problem, they want to blame the conclusion you have drawn or the position you have taken on you and on your mindset or thinking, thereby relieving themselves of any and all accountability. The best response in this case is no response. Simply do what you know is morally correct and what your obligations demands of you. It is important to remember that most colleagues are supportive. Their reaction to you may be due to a certain level of stress from their own schedules. You could have spoken to them after being heavily criticized by a manager, or after having a very heated conversation with a parent, or having a very difficult lesson. These negative behaviors could also be coming from a place of unconscious response. As the teacher on the receiving end, when these behaviors occur, you choose to go high and use these as learning opportunities to either be more informed or to develop your pedagogy. What are some of the crude things that your colleagues say? How do you respond to these harsh statements? What advice could you give to any early career teacher to help them rise above these narratives?